Hey everyone, and welcome back. Today we're diving into a story that's pretty fascinating. We're talking about Lori Farinacci.
Lori Farinacci, yeah.
Now, if you're a Goo Goo Dolls fan, her name might ring a bell, but the full story, well, it's kind of shrouded in mystery, wouldn't you say?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
There's not a ton out there about her directly.
Right.
We've dug up some old blog posts, articles, even some fan comments from back in the day.
Oh, wow.
And it turns out her relationship with John Rzeznik, the lead singer,
Yeah.
it seems to have overlapped with some of the Goo Goo Dolls' most iconic songs.
It's true. It's true. So we're going to try to piece together her story and see what we can learn about her influence on their music.
I think what strikes me is how little we actually hear from Lori herself.
Right.
We're relying on John's interviews, these little glimpses into their life, and the fan speculation. It's almost as if she's this enigma, like this mysterious figure in the Goo Goo Dolls story.
It's true. Like a hidden figure, almost. So, okay, let's rewind. Picture it. Early 90s, the Goo Goo Dolls are just starting out. I mean, John's working as a barback, just trying to make ends meet, and that's where he meets Lori, right?
Yeah.
And they end up getting married in 93 just as the band is, starting to gain a little bit of traction.
Yeah, and think about those early years. The financial strain, relentless touring, the sheer grit it takes to make it in the music industry. It's a pressure cooker.
Oh, for sure.
And that kind of pressure, it can make or break a relationship.
Absolutely. And I think you can almost hear that struggle in the early music, like
Yeah.
that raw emotional edge. I remember reading a quote from John in 96. This was an interview. He describes Lori as an ex-model who manages a Disney store.
Wow, okay.
Can you imagine? Talk about a life change, going from like that world to seeing your husband on MTV.
It's a stark contrast, to
Yeah.
say the least. Remember, this was before arena tours, before they were selling out stadiums. We're talking like dingy clubs, small venues. It must have been a completely different experience for both of them.
A completely different world. And it makes you wonder, what was her role during those early days? Was she like his rock, his confidant, the one who kept him grounded amidst all the chaos of trying to make it? What do you think?
It's a million-dollar question, isn't it? I mean, some articles back then called them madly in love. But even the strongest love is tested when you throw fame and ambition into the mix, wouldn't you say?
Oh, yeah.
We see this tension between fame and personal life play out again and again with musicians. It's almost a tale as old as time.
It's that classic rock and roll story, right? Love on the road,
Yeah.
and that constant pull between pursuing your dreams and wanting stability, wanting a normal life. And speaking of stability, well, that brings us to, I think, a major turning point for the Goo Goo Dolls, and that's Name. 1995. This song changes everything for them. But this is also where I think things get really, really interesting with John and Lori.
Before we jump into Name, there's this quote from John from a 96 interview that I think adds an interesting layer to all of this. He's talking about how tough touring was in those early days. And he says, I used to bring my girlfriend out with us just so that she could experience what the hell I was going through. Look, there's no one here. You understand this. Like, he was already trying to bridge that gap, between his life on stage and their life together.
I never thought about it that way. It's like he knew there was a disconnect even then. Okay, so Name, big turning point. Things get interesting. What were you saying?
Well, Jones talked a lot about how he almost quit music right before writing Name.
Really?
He was ready to walk away from it all.
Wow.
And then
Lori gave him the ultimatum. I think I've heard this story. Like, she wanted a more stable life, something more, normal, maybe even predictable.
you got it. And the irony is, her wanting that stable life might have been the very thing that sparked one of the biggest rock ballads of all time.
Wow.
John actually said in an interview, and I quote, "Name. I was going to quit playing music because we couldn't make any money doing it. My wife wanted to have a real life." Sounded aping horrible. So I had the ultimatum put to me. And so I immediately sat on the sofa, and I was like, I got to write a fifthing song. And I wrote a song, and this is what came out.
Wow.
Talk about an origin story, right?
It's amazing how those raw emotions can fuel such incredible music, But the question is, after Name becomes this huge hit, does it actually give Lori that stability she's looking for? Or does it just complicate things even more?
That's the irony of success sometimes, isn't it?
Yeah.
Name blows up, the Goo Goo Dolls are everywhere, and I imagine for Lori, it probably amplifies those pressures, those tensions we were talking about.
Yeah.
More touring, more time apart, the opposite of what she wanted.
Fame, the double-edged sword. And we can't forget about Iris, which became their biggest hit. And that was released in '98, right around the time that John and Laurie actually separated. Coincidence?
I don't think so. I mean, John's always been pretty private about Iris, the meaning behind it. But he has admitted that, personal stuff, real life, played a part in writing it. And when you look at the timing, well, it's hard not to hear echoes of his relationship with Laurie in those lyrics, those heart-wrenching lyrics.
Right. It makes you wonder if Iris was his way of processing everything, like a musical farewell almost. But we're going to dive a little deeper into that in just a bit.
Because what I find really fascinating is whether Laurie's influence, her presence, if it faded after they separated or if it lingered in the Goo Goo Dolls' music.
It's a good question. That's what we're going to uncover as we continue this deep dive. Stick around, folks. So last we left off, John and Laurie are going their separate ways, and Iris is blowing up the charts. It's kind of a lot to unpack there. Did Laurie's influence, just disappear after that, or is it still there, hidden in those later albums?
It's a question that sparks so many fan theories, right?
Yeah.
Breakups. They fuel some of the most powerful art, don't they?
Oh, absolutely. So many of my favorite songs, they came from a place of heartbreak.
Exactly. It's that raw emotion. But back to the Goo Goo Dolls. What makes you think Laurie's presence might still be there even after the breakup?
Well, okay, fast forward to 2002. John and Laurie officially divorce. And the band, they release their 6th album, Gutter Flower. And fans notice something different about it, really.
It was like roll error. A bit darker maybe than their earlier stag. Could be a coincidence. But there's this one song, Think About Me.
Oh, yeah, Think About Me.
That one really stands out.
It's got that melancholy feel to it. Okay, what about it makes you think of Laurie?
Well, John, he introduced Think About Me at a bunch of concerts, and he said it was written for a woman he lived with for 5 years.
Which would be Laurie.
Right. 5 years before they split. It's like he's subtly hinting at it without actually saying her name.
That's so interesting. And there are all those fan theories about other songs too, right? From Better Flower and maybe even later albums.
Oh, yeah, tons.
Yeah.
Take Stop the World, for example. The lyrics go, we can chase the light until the morning comes, or we can face the night. Hold on, hold on.
Yeah.
You could see that as like John wrestling with this choice between his career, chasing the light, and, the comfort and stability of a serious relationship. A theme we've seen before with him, right?
Wow, when you put it that way. What other songs are people talking about?
Just the Way You Are is another one. Some fans think it reflects, I don't know, the complications, the push and pull they must have felt in their relationship, all that pressure from his fame.
Yeah, we talked about that.
It's all there in the lyrics, maybe.
It really makes you want to go back and listen to everything again with fresh ears. Like, are there hidden messages everywhere?
And that's the beauty of music, right?
Yeah.
It can have so many different meanings, and each listener brings their own experiences to it. Even if John never confirms any of these theories, it just adds another layer to the music,
Totally. I'm right there with you. But we should also, consider the other side of this.
Oh, absolutely.
Are we just, I don't know, projecting what we want to see onto these songs? Like, maybe John and Laurie's relationship was really important to him, but not necessarily like the only inspiration for every song he wrote during that time.
Oh, for sure. We got to acknowledge John's right to privacy, too. He's talked about his personal life, but he's also allowed to keep some things private.
Yeah, absolutely.
Even if these songs aren't, directly about Laurie, it's clear she had an impact on him, especially during those years when the band was really taking off.
Right. It's like she was part of his world, so her influence probably just naturally seeped into his music, even if he wasn't, consciously writing about her,
Exactly. And it kind of brings up this bigger question, don't you think?
What's that?
How much does an artist's personal life really shape their art? Can you ever really separate the two?
That's a good question. A really good question.
Right.
And that actually leads perfectly into, I think, what we're going to talk about next. If she did have this huge impact on the Goo Goo Dolls, why is Laurie barely mentioned anywhere in, the official band history?
Right. It's like she's been written out, almost like she was never there.
Exactly. And that's what's got me thinking. It's strange, right? We've spent all this time, and it seems like Lori Farinacci, she could be this, unsung hero, this muse behind some of the Goo Goo Dolls' most powerful work.
Yeah.
But if you look at the band's history, officially, she's barely there, like a footnote. Why do you think that is?
It's almost like this classic story, the woman behind the man, her contributions, they get overlooked. But with Laurie, it's like we see hints of her influence in the music.
It's true. The lyrics, when the songs were released, even just John's, little comments about what inspired him. We may not have her side of the story, but you can feel her presence.
Right. And not having that full picture just makes it even more, I don't know. Mysterious. Yeah, we're left to kind of like fill in the blanks.
Right, right. So if Lori was this like guiding force for the Goo Goo Dolls, at least for a time, why isn't she a bigger part of their story? Officially, I mean.
Well, I think we have to be mindful of John Rzeznik's privacy.
Of course.
He's been open about some things, but he's also allowed to keep some parts of his life private, especially, relationships.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, everyone wants a peek behind the curtain, but artists deserve to protect those things, those people that matter to them.
Exactly. And it wouldn't be surprising if maybe for John, talking about Lori too openly, it'd be like betraying a trust.
Yeah.
Like he's protecting something precious.
Protecting that shared past. It makes you wonder, though, what if someday Lori decides to share her perspective?
Oh, man.
Can you imagine the stories, the insights?
That'd be like, I don't know, discovering a lost piece of music history.
It would be incredible.
To hear her voice, to finally get the full picture.
Right, but for now, we just have these little pieces. We have to listen for her echoes in the music and just appreciate the mystery of it all, The woman behind those unforgettable Goo Goo Dolls songs.
And isn't that kind of the fun of it?
Yeah.
You might never have all the answers, but it's the searching that can be rewarding. It makes you listen more closely, think differently.
Absolutely. And you start to think about all the other muses, the hidden influences behind our favorite music,
Exactly. All those untold stories. And wouldn't it be great if even just one person listening to this was inspired to go dig a little deeper themselves, to look past the stage lights and appreciate those real lives, those relationships that bring the music to life.
That's what it's all about. I'm so glad you were here to do this deep dive with me.
Thanks for having me.
And to everyone listening, thanks for tuning in. Keep those turntables spinning, and we'll catch you next time.